South African President Jacon Zuma officially opened the port of Ngqurha in the province of the Eastern Cape last week. Built at a cost of almost 10 billion rand over 10 years, the port is part of the country's new infrastructure program chaired by the president himself. Buntu reports.
The port of Ngqurha, located in the Eastern Cape province, will become a flagship project in South Africa's industrialization program. These were the words of President Jacon Zuma at the opening of the port.
The development of this port is not just a once-off localized event. It reflects the long-term vision of government to develop Ngqurha as one of the biggest transshipment hubs in sub-Saharan Africa.
The port is located in the Ngqurha Industrial Development Zone, a few kilometers from the port city of Port Elizabeth.
Right here, where we are, is the biggest transshipment hub in sub-Saharan Africa.
And the task of ensuring that vision has been placed squarely on the shoulders of state-owned transport utility Transnet.
Hardly 12 years ago, I was here, by the way, for the sword-turning ceremony after we've accepted the instruction that you will build this port. And interestingly enough, ports like these are not built on financial viability. The port of Richards Bay was not built on financial viability. And other future ports initially will be built along those bases. You take strategic decisions that you will do projects like these.
Transnet CEO Brian Molefe explained the utility's preparedness to meet its responsibilities.
Transnet has a very stable balance sheet, a very strong balance sheet. Of the 300 billion that we require to spend over the next 7 years, 200 billion will come from our own resources. And so we're only borrowing 100 billion, which is always very good for investors to know. We are located within South Africa, which is a growing economy, which is very established both in the domestic and the international debt markets. We have ourselves in South Africa very strong debt capital markets, one of the strongest debt capital markets in the world. And the sovereign has established benchmarks for our sovereign bonds and for borrowing overseas. So we think that from a financing point of view, we're in a very good position to be able to execute the program to raise the extra 100 billion that is required.
While government was keen to emphasize the project as indicative of the impact of state-owned enterprises on economic transformation, it also stressed the importance of the private sector.
We expect that our SOEs are going to play an increasing role in the South African economy to create an enabling environment to crowd in the private sector. We are in a constant dialogue with the private sector about their role. In the Transnet's 300 billion rand CAPEX program, there are areas that have been earmarked for private sector participation. That would include those that are not part of this 300 billion rand capital expenditure program, such as the Durban dig-out port. So we need to establish a very robust and vibrant relationship between the private sector and government in a manner, as the President was saying, that is also going to lead us to transform the ownership, management and control of the South African economy, to industrialize the economy by bringing in more black players in the South African infrastructure space.
The port has already secured some investment through its linkage with the Ngqurha Industrial Development Zone.
Recently, the Ngqurha IDZ gained a major new investment by First Automobile Works of China, which confirms the potential of this zone in attracting foreign direct investment to boost employment creation.
Present at the event was one of the IDZ's major tenants and owner of one of the smelters.
The smelter that we're building here will produce 320,000 tons of high carbon ferromanganese and will employ plus minus 1,200 people in the Ngqurha IDZ. and it will create other industries. For instance, your steel fabrication. For us, we see the project as a provincial-wide project that will resuscitate also the East London and the Umtata ITZ by actually, during construction phase, making sure that some of the steel fabrication that is going to happen in the smelter will actually be procured from the two ITZ that I've mentioned, including the third one, which would be in the PE area. So we actually see it as creating jobs not only in the PE area only, but also it's a provincial-wide project.
To make the port globally competitive, the government also announced a R1 billion rebate scheme to come into effect on 1 April this year.
I announced that the port regulator and Transnet had agreed on a R1 billion rebate, which would result in exporters of manufactured goods receiving a significant decrease in port charges.
South Africa hopes projects such as the Port of Ngqurha will lend weight to the country's economic role.
The port's role in promoting free trade in the continent will also come into sharp focus as Africa cements its goal of establishing a continental free trade zone.
It is the government's hope that the project will eventually help manage the country's Siamese triplets problem: poverty, unemployment, and growth.